before crowns were weighed by gold, before laws were written to favor the weak and punish the strong. There were men who survived by blade, will, and silence. Kriakk was forged in that older world, a land of broken empires, blood-soaked roads, and gods who never answered prayers. He learned early that mercy is a luxury, and survival is paid for in pain. He does not seek glory. He does not serve kings. He walks where death is certain and returns only because the world has failed to stop him. This is an age of cruelty and consequence. And this is a tale of Kriakk.
Kriakk moved through the spine of the mountains like a shadow that had learned patience. Stones rose in jagged ribs around him, wind carving its endless hymn through narrow passes and broken cliffs. The air was thin, sharp enough to sting the lungs, yet he breathed it deeply as though it were a language he understood. Each step found purchase without sound. Each shift of weight was measured. The land did not welcome the careless. He wore no excess, fur bound to leather, leather bound to scarred flesh. His boots were stitched from hide he had cured himself, hardened by ash and smoke. A cloak, mottled in earth tones, broke the shape of him against rock and tree alike. Even the blade at his hip bore no ornament, stone chipped and honed, lashed to a grip of bone and sinew. It had no name. It did not need one. He watched. A hawk circled high above, riding unseen currents. Kriakk's eyes tracked it, not with envy, but with understanding. It wasted nothing, no motion, no energy. When it struck, it would do so with certainty. He filed that away, another quiet lesson carved into the marrow. The mountains thinned into a dense forest where ancient trees twisted skyward, their limbs choking out the light. Moss clung to bark like old secrets. The ground softened beneath his steps, a carpet of decay and rebirth. Here, silence changed. It was no longer the hollow whistle of wind, but a layered hush, alive, watchful. Kriakk crouched beside a narrow trail where the earth had been disturbed. 2 fingers brushed the soil, damp, fresh, hoofed, small. He followed. Hours passed as a breath held too long. He moved when the forest moved, stilled when it stilled. A broken twig was a shout, a careless exhale, a warning. Hunger pressed at him, but he did not rush it. Hunger sharpened him, made him true. He saw the deer before it saw him. It grazed in a shallow clearing, ears flicking, muscles coiled beneath its hide. Kriakk did not reach for his blade. Instead, he lowered himself, slow as settling dust, and drew from his back a length of wood, straight, balanced, a spear. The tip was stone, chipped with brutal precision, edges like teeth. He waited for the moment when the world aligned. Wind shifted. The deer lifted its head, but too late. The spear left his hand with no wasted motion, no flourish, only intent. It struck deep. The forest held its breath as the animal staggered, then fell. Kriakk approached without triumph. He knelt beside the fallen creature and placed a hand upon its flank, feeling the last tremors fade. There was no gratitude spoken, no ritual carved in words, only stillness, a recognition, life taken, life given. He worked with practiced efficiency. Bone became tool, hide became future shelter. Meat was cut, portioned, wrapped in leaves and fiber. Nothing was left for rot that could be used for survival. Even the blood darkened the soil with purpose. By dusk, he had moved on. A river cut through the forest ahead, its voice constant and low. Kriakk followed its edge until he found a bend where the current slowed and pooled. Fish flickered beneath the surface, silver ghosts darting through shadow. He did not wade in. Instead, he gathered stones, flat, heavy, and shaped the flow, narrowing the passage. It took time. The water resisted, as all things did, but patience bent it. When the channel tightened, He stood poised above it, spear ready. The first strike missed, the second did not. The fish thrashed briefly before stilling. Kriakk pulled it free, its scales catching the dying light. He made fire not with ease but with repetition, wood against wood, friction coaxing ember, ember coaxing flame. Smoke rose thin and grey, swallowed quickly by the trees. He cooked without indulgence, ate without excess. What remained he preserved. Night came heavy. Kriakk did not sleep on open ground. He chose a place where roots knotted thick and low, where the earth rose just enough to break the wind. Branches were cut, angled, woven, leaves layered thick against cold and damp. A shelter formed, not permanent, not comfortable, but sufficient. It would not betray him. Before settling, he erased his passing. Footprints brushed away, ash scattered, blood covered. The forest would remember, but nothing else would. He lay beneath the shelter, eyes open to the narrow sliver of sky visible through the canopy. Stars blinked in and out as branches swayed. The world moved, breathed, endured. So did he. Morning would come. Hunger would return. The path would continue, winding through stone and shadow, through life that fed on life without hesitation or remorse. Kriakk closed his eyes, not in rest, but in readiness. The land had not claimed him, not yet. The mountains gave way not with warning, but with surrender. Stone softened into loam. The air thickened, clinging to the skin, rich with the scent of rot and bloom. What had been wind-carved silence became something heavier, layered, breathing, watching. The jungle did not whisper. It listened. Kriakk felt it at once, not with his ears nor his eyes, but deeper, an old instinct honed long before memory. The weight of attention pressed against his back like heat from a fire not yet seen. Leaves shifted where no wind passed. Branches creaked under burdens that did not reveal themselves. He did not turn to look. Turning acknowledged uncertainty. Instead he moved as he always had, measured, deliberate, part of the world rather than apart from it. Yet something changed. His path curved subtly, his pace adjusted. The hunter did not flee. He mapped them without seeing them. A snapped vine, too high for a boar, a shadow that lingered too long in the canopy, the faint musk of animal, sharp, territorial, restless, not solitary, many, troop. Kriakk lowered himself beside a cluster of broad-leafed plants, fingers brushing the damp soil. Tracks overlapped, layered confusion that told a clearer truth. They circled, tested, probed, curiosity, aggression, hunger. He rose and continued, but now there was purpose in each step beyond survival. He searched not for safety, but for ground. He found it near dusk, a shallow depression between massive roots where the jungle floor dipped just enough to gather shadow early. Above, thick branches tangled into a natural canopy. The space was defensible. More importantly, it was predictable. Anything watching would expect him to stop there. So he did. Kriakk worked quickly but not carelessly. Branches were cut and leaned, leaves layered thick. A crude shelter took shape, its angles suggesting fatigue, its construction just flawed enough to appear rushed. To an untrained eye, it was protection. To Kriakk, it was bait. Beneath the shelter, unseen, he carved the earth. Using bone and stone, he hollowed a space just beyond its edge, tunneling under root and soil. It was not deep, only enough to conceal a man willing to lie with the dirt pressed against his chest, to breathe through narrow gaps and wait in stillness that bordered on death. He masked the entrance with care. Leaves, mud, fragments of root. No sign remained. By the time darkness began to swallow the jungle, Kriakk lay beneath the earth, his body coiled in silence. Above him, the shelter stood empty. The jungle held its breath. Then came the movement, soft at first, a ripple through branches. Then another, Shapes descended from the canopy, lean, powerful, their limbs built for climbing, tearing, crushing. Eyes gleamed in the dim light, reflecting hunger sharpened by numbers. Chimpanzees, but not as the gentle observer might imagine. These were war-bound creatures of the deep jungle, scarred, territorial, their muscles knotted with violent intent. They did not chatter, they stalked. One approached the shelter, sniffing, testing. Another joined, then 5, then 10. A low, guttural sound passed among them, a signal. They rushed. The shelter collapsed in an explosion of motion. Branches ripped free, leaves torn apart, the structure reduced to splinters within moments. They clawed through it, tearing, searching, expecting struggle, flesh, blood. They found nothing. The troops stilled. Confusion spread like a crack in stone. Heads turned, nostrils flared. The scent was there, fresh, undeniable, but the prey was gone. They looked to one another, and in that single moment of uncertainty, the ground broke. Kriakk erupted from beneath them like something born of the earth itself. Dirt and roots exploded outward as he surged upward, a force of violence unleashed without warning. The first chimpanzee did not even have time to react. Kriakk's blade drove upward through its throat, the stone edge tearing through flesh and bone. He ripped it free and turned before the body hit the ground. They came at him in a frenzy. Claws, teeth, raw strength. Kriakk met them with something colder. He moved through them not as a man surrounded, but as a storm contained within a single body. A second chimp lunged. He caught it mid-leap, twisted and drove it into the ground hard enough to break its spine. Another leapt onto his back. He slammed himself backward into a tree, crushing it between bark and bone. Blood slicked the earth. Screams tore through the jungle, rage, pain, confusion. They did not flee. They kept coming. Kriakk did not stop. Stone blade flashed, rose, fell. Bone cracked under his fists. Teeth snapped uselessly as he tore limbs free, as he broke bodies with brutal efficiency. He took wounds, slashes across his arms, a bite that tore into his shoulder, but he did not yield an inch. The night stretched. Time lost meaning. The battle became rhythm, impact, breath, blood. The jungle, once alive with layered sound, now echoed only with violence. Leaves trembled under the force of it. Creatures far beyond sight fled or went silent, sensing something ancient and terrible unfolding. One by one, the troop diminished. Still they came, still he answered, until there were no more. When the final body fell, the jungle did not reclaim its voice. Kriakk stood alone among ruin, chest rising and falling, skin painted in dark, drying blood. Around him, broken forms lay scattered, the earth churned into mud and crimson. He did not linger. As the first grey light of dawn filtered through the canopy, he was already gone, another shadow swallowed by green. The silence remained. Hours passed. Then, from the depths of the jungle, something moved. A lone chimpanzee emerged. It limped forward, one arm hanging uselessly, its body torn and trembling. Its eyes, once bright with feral dominance, now held something else, something fractured. It paused, swaying, as if unsure the world still held ground beneath its feet. The jungle did not greet it. No birds called, no insects sang. Only silence. It took another step, and then a rock struck the back of its skull with a dull, final crack. The creature pitched forward, collapsing into the damp earth. Blood pooled beneath its face, spreading slowly into the soil. The jungle watched and said nothing.
Fear the wrath I bring.